Hey guys, today on the Flexwork podcast, it's your boy Ankur Garg again. I have a very special guest. I don't know if he knows it, but back in the day when I first started my marketing agency, it was called Crimson Lab. And his father, and I guess partially you because you were the negotiator at the time, they were actually my second client ever
No way.
for building the websites and everything.
Yes, I remember that.
I have since had hundreds, if not thousands, of clients. But everyone, I'd like to introduce you to Samir. I'm not going to try pronouncing your last name, but if you want to, how do I pronounce your last name properly?
It's Virtsingani, Samir Virtsingani.
Ritzingani.
Virtsingani.
Okay.
Yeah.
I feel like with every Bollywood movie that comes out, it's always like the rich family that has a last name that ends in those types of vowels and letters.
We're not rich, but okay. I'll take it.
Fair enough, man. Fair enough. So Raj Photo Videos.
Raj
how
Photo
we met.
Video. Yeah. So actually, I remember, you're right. So I remember distinctively in 2012, like me and you were sitting, where were we sitting? I don't remember, but you helped me create a WordPress site.
Yeah.
And like ever since then, like, yeah, so to your point, like we started the business in 2004 and it was always meant to be just like a side hustle, and it still is today, but we've trying to take it to a little bit more than that. But you know, back then, like no one ever thought like a company should be just purely online and just fully digital and not have a storefront or any kind of like office space.
So Samir, do you know the definition of a side hustle?
Well, no, enlighten me.
So a side hustle is something that you don't do as your primary source of income.
Right.
Right. But it stops being a side hustle as soon as you hit 5 figures in revenue.
Right.
So now it's a secondary form of income.
Okay.
It's no longer a side hustle.
Okay, so I still call it a
You
side
guys
hustle,
are not
but
even at the 5 figure. You're at the 6 figure realm of income.
luckily, yes. Yes, I would say that. Yeah.
It's interesting because I've always felt like when you do things, it's a lot like me. You do a deep dive and you try to perfect it. And that was something I always respected about you, specifically when we met way back when.
Yeah.
When our hairs were pure black, not a single gray in sight. And now we both weather the salt and pepper look as well as we can, right?
Yeah.
Mine's a little harder to hide than yours is,
yeah.
but mine's just in the front.
I gave up. I was coloring at one point. I said, forget it.
You actually went the color route.
I tried it. And I said,
Okay.
you know what, this is too much to keep up with. And I feel like I was destroying my hair, so I said, forget it.
I don't think you or I have to worry about our hair getting destroyed or anything.
Luckily not. Hopefully not.
Yeah, I mean, it comes from our mother's, our maternal grandfather.
Okay.
Did he have a full head of hair?
My maternal grandfather, you know, honestly, no, he was bald. All my dad's side of the family was all bald.
Mom's side. Your mom's father.
Mom's side he's also thinning.
Thinning.
Never thick hair.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
So you should be worried.
Everyone's thinning.
So you
on
should
my
be
side.
worried.
Well, but maybe I got someone. Maybe my great maternal
Maybe it
grandfather.
skipped a line.
Yeah, exactly.
Fair enough, man. So, I mean, most people don't. Well, everyone knows this about you, that you're a published photographer.
Yeah, we could say that. So I started doing photography back in 2004, really diving into Indian weddings first, and it was kind of by default, to be honest, just because that's what we landed with. We started with like baby showers and birthday parties, and that's how you and I met.
Yeah.
You know, doing some of the common events.
Sweet 16s.
Sweet 16s,
baby
yeah, birthday.
showers.
Yeah,
I used to DJ, for those of you who didn't know.
yeah. So,
Um,
me and you used to run into each other quite a bit at some of these events, and I think from there we hit it off because you had like a very like entrepreneurial spirit, and I was like trying to figure out the side hustle or secondary income, hopefully, at the time. And so like
back then you shot on a Canon.
I shot on Canon,
I
yeah.
know.
So now it's all fully Sony. We went,
I hope you heard that, Ludwig. He converted to Team Sony.
yeah, go to the mirrorless line. You'll never look back. Yeah, so I used to have the Canon 5D Mark II is what it was, and then
I don't even think the Mark II was out back then.
2012
2004
is when I got it. No. So I was Nikon day one.
Stop it.
Yeah.
You were a Nikon shooter
Nikon
back then?
60D, if I remember correctly.
And we were friends? I didn't know any better. I was foolish at that
It was one of
point
those
in
like
time.
hobby cameras that like literally you just had like even like a little pop-up flash that comes up. I didn't understand anything about lighting, like none of this stuff. It was just
You've
pop-up
come a long
flash.
way, though.
Yeah.
I mean, I've seen your setups now. They're very...
Yeah. It's,
I mean, if you had to put a ballpark on how much equipment the family owns, what would you pick?
oh wow, we're probably talking at over $100,000 now. Yeah, between
Yeah.
me, my brother, and my father. Yeah, we're probably talking 6 mirrorless line cameras, lighting, audio, 10 plus lenses, all G Master Glass lenses.
Go ahead, flex.
No, I mean, it's not even meant to that. It's not even meant to flex, really. It's really just more about like what you learn, what you need over time.
I just now know that if I ever fall short with cameras, I can call you because
Yeah.
you're on Sony as well. So what bodies are you using?
So I'm using the 5D Mark II, or I was using the 5D Mark II on the Canon side, and then when I switched to Sony, I went to the A7 R2,
Okay.
and I got that in 2015. I had 2 of them, and never felt the need to upgrade after that. I mean, it was just perfect for what I needed.
Yeah.
Quite light. You start adding you start adding lenses on top of that. It gets a little heavy, but especially for like a long wedding day, where you're shooting like 12, 13, 14 hours, so you want something light, agile, so you can like quick be able to like maneuver throughout.
I'm so
throughout the day.
impressed that you never fell into the upgrade trap.
No, to me, it was always a business. Like, you always had to look at it as a business lens, right? Like, what's your money in versus money out? And if you're constantly buying new equipment, I mean, technically you're running in the red. So for me, like, I'll do it strategically if I need to. If there's a certain lens or certain style or look I need to achieve, I'll do it. Computers and stuff like that. Like, there's certain things that you need to have. But after a certain point, once you understand your style, what tools you need, whether it's your hammer or nails is what I call it. I mean, you don't need a fancy drill bit, right? Like, just use what you've got, and if that is enough to create the media you need that you can envision, then you don't really need anything else, really.
It's fair enough, man.
Yeah,
But what do you think of the setup?
I love the setup. This is very impressive.
So before we even recorded, you told me this was your first podcast.
Yes.
How is that possible? For the number of years that your family's been creating video content.
It's ironic because I've never actually took the time to focus on creating content for ourselves and for our business. And like now, going into 2025, I'm like, you know what? This is probably the highest leverage thing you can do. And I'm like, I've been putting it off for years at a time. And we've gotten so like caught up with creating content for all our customers, our wedding films, our photography.
But has a bride ever asked you to record a podcast?
No.
Can you imagine?
I feel like I need to, as a way to be able to provide value to my customers, like as they're going through their journey, create content that's going to help them during the planning process or during the negotiation process. Like, if there's certain things or certain experiences that I can share for my time, be able to provide value for my clients, like then I'm like, well, why am I not doing it? So I know I probably reached out to you probably a year ago and just kind of struggled to do that.
So is this the Raj Photo Video?
It's Raj Photo Video. Yeah.
Okay, it's all of Raj Photo Video, brides and grooms for 2025. I'm going to hook everyone up. Every bride and groom can record one podcast for free at
Okay.
Flexworks Studios.
Okay.
You're not included. It'll just
so
be the
you
bride
mean-
and the
okay.
groom
Oh, okay, just you.
having a conversation for an hour that we record forever.
Okay. Deal.
And then you can choose whether or not you show it
Okay.
in like the edit and everything.
Deal.
I just feel like
That's a good idea.
one of the main motivating like decisions when it came to building a space like this, like a multi-room podcast space doesn't exist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, sure, there's one of these in Vegas, there's one in New York, and so on and so forth, but like not in a suburban area
Not around here. no.
or an area where I think that people need stuff like this.
Yeah.
But I always
agree.
thought people who have ailing grandparents, if they were able to memorialize a conversation with their grandparent forever, with them just answering questions about their life, their childhood,
Absolutely.
their hopes, their dreams,
Yeah.
they could have this forever, right? It's digital. It's in the cloud. There's
Yeah.
no concern of it
Yeah.
ever going away. And let's say there's pregnant parents and wanting to have a conversation with their kid before the kid arrives.
Right.
Or let's say it's a bachelorette party. I mean, everyone doesn't want to go get wasted, right, in
Yeah.
Nashville. I mean,
Yeah.
the ones who do, God bless them,
Sure.
right? We look forward to those photos on Instagram every week. But the ones who want to have like mature conversations, imagine having 6 of your bridesmaids around a table and just recording that conversation and having it forever.
No one thinks like that.
But it would be awesome.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we built out the space so that we could do that here. And you see the giant flex space that I have with the sofas and set up out there. We could do all sorts of really cool arrangements.
Is that what you're envisioning for it? So more than just like, your average, everyday person, you're also looking at it for like from a small business point of view?
The truth is, you don't make money on those emotional milestone conversations, but it's the reason that you do it.
Right.
Right? You don't make money like getting that extra shot that someone wanted at the grandparents' house
Yeah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's what makes it worth it for you as a photographer to
Right.
go do all that extra
Yeah.
stuff, right?
Yeah.
I think the real money is in people who want to do full-scale podcast series, like seasons, 10 episode, 12 episode. They want to market it. There's a business ROAS calculation to it and everything that goes with
Sure.
it. And then, to be honest, I know you launched a course not too
Yeah.
long ago.
Tried.
Creating course content is not easy.
It's terrible.
And having a producer to help direct it, the animations that go with it, I think
Yeah.
those are the real breadwinners for us over here.
Yeah.
And a lot of my marketing in the past year has been word of mouth.
Mhm.
But now we're trying advertising to
Okay.
let people know about the space. And surprise, surprise, there's competitors that have popped up in the past year, but they only have one room, and they don't have me. Right. So that's the main
I
differentiating
think what
factor.
you have is really special because it's not just the space itself. You've also got on the back end of that the strategy on like what are you envisioning post production. You said like the directorship, the way you can kind of aid someone in what the vision is and how you ultimately achieve it. But it's not just here you go, here's the space and that's it. It's really how you post produce it and ultimately achieves the vision that you're looking for.
Yeah. I just hope I don't cause any premarital breakups during the podcast recording.
Uncovered things that were not meant to be uncovered.
Because, man, I got married last year. It was not an easy time.
Congrats.
For my wife and I. There were fights. There were arguments.
How did she feel about this?
You know, my wife's one of those doesn't want to be in front of the camera types.
Okay.
But it would have been a great conversation if we ever had an opportunity to get behind it. She's also like stunningly photogenic, which is annoying. Like, you know those memes where it's like you can't take a bad photo of someone?
Right.
She's one of those.
Okay.
I've tried. It just doesn't happen. And
what does she do for a living, or what's her career?
so she's like a superhero. She does fundraising for like nonprofits.
Okay.
Like grant writing, fundraising, events, all that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And she's working for a company called Volunteer Lawyers for Justice
Okay.
out of Newark. So people who can't afford an attorney, often like these crazy immigration cases or
Right.
like, you know, I don't even know the full extent of the types of cases that they deal with, but it's not like the ACLU. It's more like privatized cases.
Got it. Very cool. I don't know. What else?
So in this setup, is there anything you would change?
Let's see. So you've got the mic, you've got the cameras, maybe a hair light. I don't know.
A hair light? I mean, I'm pretty sure your hair is sticking out on its own. But yeah, no, your hair.
Technically, this counts as a hair light, right?
Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, in lighting, this is called a key light,
Yep.
right above us.
Yep.
These are called
That's technically your hair light or your fill.
it's fill lights, right? That's what these are called. The ones
three,
behind
yeah.
us.
So key light, fill light, and then a hair light. So 1, 2, 3. You've got 2, but I mean, honestly, you don't need. I realized that when I was doing it, like 3 was overkill. So I had exactly what you have. Like so each, what do you call it? LED.
Sabers.
No, there's a brand. It begins with an R. I forget. I think I know which one this is.
These are newer.
Yeah, I think I got something similar. But
We became a newer ambassador and a road ambassador
oh, okay,
in 2-3 years ago.
okay,
So we get hooked up with all this kind of stuff.
nice. Okay, so I had gotten 2 of these, and then I got the key light, which was like an aperture light, and then I had an aperture smaller one, like as a back fill, and then I also had like a New Edge one, I think it was,
Yeah.
on the side, and I realized it was like overly produced, where like my face was like completely like white on one side, and then just like perfect on this side.
You're a big fan of Rembrandt lighting.
Yeah.
I've noticed that in your setups and your content that you're putting out right now on social media.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, oh, this is a master class in Rembrandt lighting. When I
Yeah.
see what you set up, because you get that triangle on that one side of the face,
Right. Yeah.
and that's all intentional.
I have to thank SLR Lounge for that. If you know Lynn and Girsa Photography,
Oh,
they're based
yeah.
out of California. So there's a guy named Pi Girsa that
Like you flew to California to get.
no, it was completely online.
Oh, okay.
yeah,
All right.
but actually, when I started taking photography seriously, was probably right around 2012, 2013, where I was like, well, I really want to educate myself on lighting and posing and directorship. Speaking with groups of like bridal parties, family photos, I realized there was a whole host of like photography that I was not fully grasping. And sure, like when you do a typical banquet event, you go there, you shoot the event, but there's so many like nuances of like why people hire you, not just to cover the event, but to actually like lead the day.
For sure,
And
man.
ensure
Yeah.
that they're getting the photos that they envisioned versus just click, 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 click. Sure, like I mean anyone can do that, but I think it takes another level of skill to be able to actually emotionally get a couple vested behind the camera.
Like,
posed
excuse
in
me,
the right way.
Pundit, I need you to do that thing one more time, please.
Well, not even just that. It was more around like the couple, right? So think about it. Like no one naturally is natural behind a camera,
Yeah.
right? And
Except for you and me.
except from you and me.
Yeah.
You mix that with the most stressful day of their lives, right? So now I've got a camera, and it's also the most stressful day that they're probably going to face in a long time. How can you make that experience better for the client? I feel like that by itself is a skill.
No, man. How do we change it from being the most stressful day to not being the most stressful day?
Don't do your hair and makeup at 4 in the morning.
You think that's what makes it stressful?
I
not
think it's
sleeping?
just I think it's just a lot happening in a short period of time. So when you
I
have a
think it's the
morning
parents,
ceremony,
man.
you think the parents
it's the
do?
parents. It's all the pressure of having to take care of everyone else instead of just celebrating yourselves.
Yeah, and I feel like it's becoming a lot less than what it was meant to become. Like, in the sense of, it's now more for everyone else than it is for the reason why you decided to get married in the first place. It's more for the family, for the extended family. It's,
And I think that generational curse is going to finally get broken with the next generation.
I think it's already happening though. If you look
It-
at like
partially, yeah.
everything happened like, okay. So what we noticed specifically after COVID was there was more of a trend towards smaller, more intimate weddings, functions at home, reduced timelines. Hey, I want to have just a couple of friends over and maybe my parents and VIPs, let's call them, and keeping the head count down to like 50 or less, but have a really small, intimate setting. Versus these big, grand, big banquet halls, 400, 500 people, a cake you're never going to eat, and decorations that are only going to last a couple hours. And you're spending all this money for what? For one night? When now I feel like people are getting much more economically, like understanding the value of money, and they're like, well, I'd rather put that money towards a down payment on a home instead. That's going to last forever versus blowing it all on food and alcohol.
What do you think is strategically driving those decisions?
On what?
People wanting to be more economic, people wanting the smaller groups.
I think it's a function of the economy to a certain extent. I mean, you just look at where things are today in the world. Everything's expensive. Inflation, you look at housing prices, mortgage rates. I think people just can't simply afford it. And like to justify the cost of that, I think people are rethinking that personally. But that's just my hunch. What I've seen from a lot of my customers reaching out are, well, hey, like I don't really want to go for your full-blown package. And so we've had to custom tailor things for clients and say, well, while the trend used to be I'm going to have a 3 or 4 or 5 day Indian wedding, I just want to have a quick ceremony, a reception with my closest friends, a small dinner, and that's it. So now we couldn't obviously charge the way we charge because it's not a full-blown day. We've had to kind of pivot our product and what we're going to deliver. We had to get a little more creative with our storyline on how we're actually going to put together our films and our photography collections. And instead, it's much more tighter and it's much more intimate. And I think that's the way it should be.
What I always loved about your understanding of pricing and the models was that you guys are really all about value for service, right? And I mean, going through the process myself, I think I had reached out to you for pricing, but I think you were busy or something that my day.
I don't remember.
Yeah, I think you were booked. Like you were like, unfortunately, I'm not free
Okay.
or whatever it was. So I'm reaching out to whoever I can. Man, as soon as you drop the W word and they say it's for a wedding, like the price is 5x.
Oh yeah, don't use that W word.
And it was crazy how these people were pricing me and everything.
Right.
And I'm just like, bro, I'm in the industry. Like I was in the industry. Like I know what these prices
Right.
really are. And it's one of those unfortunate things that I wonder where the service industry is going for South Asian weddings, because
Mm-hmm.
there's still the big grand weddings, but like you said, there are these smaller events and smaller weddings now.
Yep.
I guess for someone who wants to break into the industry, what would you guide them on doing? Do you make these big packages? Do you make small packages? Is everything a la carte now?
I think you have to custom tailor it based on what the client needs. I think you got to really listen to your customer versus like going in there and say, I have 3 packages and take it or leave it. And here's what everything I'm going to give you. Well, first understand where the customer is coming from. Understand like, they may not have a big budget, and I get it. Like, people want to make what they want to make on every single wedding. There's an element of it that I think also the customer doesn't understand how much work is on the back end. So even though your wedding might be 6 hours, we're talking like 18 to 24 hours of editing on the backside of that, which is what they don't see. And it's unfortunate, but like I think, as we start to get into the next couple of years, I think the post-production cycle of automatic editing is going to become more of a real thing where you can train models today, you can use AI to edit very similar to you, and I know that's very controversial, but my bet is that post-production becomes a thing of the past because there's so much data we can leverage to be able to actually automate that process, and that's actually going to squeeze people down personally. So now everyone's got a camera, so that was the first big let's just say like wave of change in the industry where everyone now cameras are much more accessible, they're cheaper to get, they're highly efficient.
Don't be pointing at my camera.
No, in a good way. No,
Okay.
Great equipment. What I'm saying is it's democratized. It's easier to get.
For sure.
Now it becomes about sales. How do you sell your customer and how do you be more efficient running a business? And I think, based on that, that gives you more room to be able to negotiate with your client and first understanding their needs and tailoring to what they need.
So I guess one thing that I've noticed in the photography space and the wedding vendor space, a lot of people will enter as a business, or people will enter as an artist that is trying to do a certain type of artistry and so on and so forth. Whether you're a floral arrangement company, whether you're a photographer, whatever it is.
Right.
I've noticed with artists, the package route tends to be simpler for them to comprehend themselves,
Right.
because they're not business people.
Right.
And then guys like you who understand the ins and outs of business can figure out, okay, here are my profitable marginal, services, and
Sure.
let me push those
Sure.
forward, and let me insist that I do these things.
Right.
Versus, for conversation's sake, you don't need me there for all 8 hours, right?
Right.
We'll take a break in the middle and we'll come back and so on and so forth.
Right.
Whereas these artists are just like, I'll be there all day and it'll be this price. Or
Yeah.
I'll do this and it'll be this price. Like, that's it.
It's an opportunity cost as well. So that's how you also have to look at it. I mean, it's the way that we think about it is, if I could be somewhere else charging the price that I ideally would like to charge, and someone takes that day and says, well, I'm going to offer you 70% of that, then you're saying, well, I'm technically losing out on the 30%. So that's how photographers technically would charge it, because it's a lost opportunity cost on what they could be charging elsewhere. But technically in today's world, like, everyone and their mother has a camera. So it's like, well, you kind of pick what you can get, and you're in competition with everyone else that's also fighting for that same job. I mean, I think that overall, like, it's going to get tougher.
Well, let's talk through that. What's your stance on competition and people coming into the market now?
I
mean, you're at this point a veteran, right, in the industry, having done it for as many years as you have. The quality of your work speaks for itself. You're one of those guys where it's like, hey, the machine's broke, and they call a guy to come fix it, and they just take a little hammer and knock it off once. Like, yeah, it's $20,000. And it's like, what? You were only here for 10 seconds,
Yeah.
but you spent 20 years of your life knowing exactly where to hit, and that's what people pay you for at this point. So how do you feel about all this new competition that's coming in? People that are, in my opinion, more artists doing a couple Instagram photos than people that are actually professional service providers.
Yeah, that's a really great point. So I think a couple of things. So one is, what people see from an artist point of view, and I fully respect people and their level of artistry when it comes to being able to shoot great portraits of couples. I think beyond that
Even the bad artists?
No, not at all. I think beyond that is more around, like, how you can actually navigate the wedding day, how you understand especially with Indian weddings specifically, like, there's more things than just clicking great pictures. It's about how you navigate the wedding day to maximize the photos that you need to get for your customer. And so while someone may look at an Instagram feed and see, wow, this looks amazing, well, take that one client and dive in deep into that one client's gallery and look at it end to end of the day. Does that photographer have endurance to keep up with the wedding day? Can they maintain creativity throughout the day? Are they getting all the family photos that they need of the immediate family? Are they missing anything? Are they able to kind of run through their checklist and understand and make sure they're getting the must-have photos that when that bride looks back 20 years from now, that they're proud of those pictures? I think there's a lot of experience that's built into your point, and that's why certain photographers may charge a premium for that, because they've been there, they've done that, they understand exactly how to navigate the day. And unfortunately, someone who's an artist, like, they may not have all that experience, but they're great at taking pictures, but at a macro level, versus, like, really getting fine-tuned and understanding how to make someone's day really special and being able to hit those points and being able to do that in a way that's efficient, in a way that also doesn't burn them out.
So are you pro newcomers into the industry?
I'm not against it.
Or do we tell everyone to back off?
No.
This is Raj Photo Video.
No. I think it's healthy. Competition is always good. It keeps me on my toes. It helps us think through how to be more creative. If anything, how can we be more efficient from a business point of view? Again, like, I came into this as a business person, not as a photographer. Photography was kind of by default. And the way my dad thought about it was like, oh, you're just clicking a couple of pictures. Of course. And so I'm sitting here trying to figure out what's the business model? How do you market? How do you sell? How do you operationalize your post-production? How do you deliver to the client? It's everything beyond just taking pictures. Taking pictures is 20% of the equation. The business is 80% of the equation. And if the sooner you understand the business, the sooner you'll be more successful, because you can really, truly understand how to make sure you're profitable doing something that you love to do. But just know that pictures are 20% of it. It's not the full scope.
So with what's happening in the market, what's next for Raj Photo Video?
So we're working on a couple of things, and secretly, the last couple of years, we've been trying to scale out our business model, and we realized that we have a capacity problem.
Wait, so what does that mean? Scaling a photo videography business, having a capacity problem.
Yep.
I mean, you need more help.
We need more help.
More brides.
Ultimately, we need more help. We
Okay.
get a lot of calls, fortunately, but the problem is we can't service every customer that comes in our door.
Like me.
Like you, yeah.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, sorry.
I was so sad.
It's partially because we also have a day job, but then second, the dates that go in the summer are the first to go. So we get booked out, unfortunately, pretty quickly. But for us, it's more about how we can make sure that we can operationalize the business. So let me just kind of boil it down very simply. So today, when we get a customer coming in, if 2 customers call for the same day, we can't handle more than one. And so what happens is we could easily double our revenue if we could. So that means we need to get talent in the door. And if we can get talent in the door and we can show them the ropes and we can train them, we can show them not beyond just how to shoot, how can we make it easier for them to be able to service their customer? So think of it like, I want to really simplify it.
Wait, so how many people are in Raj Photo Video right now?
Well, so it's me, my brother, my dad, so that's 3. And we have a network of about, I would say, 15 other photographers and videographers. So these are subcontractors.
Okay.
Yeah, so other people that we
So
call
this is
on
not
help.
a side hustle. This is a full-fledged business.
I still call it a side hustle, but
Okay. So, I mean, in your opinion, how big could Raj Photo Video get in the South Asian market or beyond the South Asian market in 5 years?
we want to be able to create the Uber for wedding photography for the South Asian couple.
Create the Uber. Okay, that's a whole different direction for this conversation.
Yeah.
But let me let you finish what you were saying
Yeah.
about this capacity problem.
So the way we're trying to think of it is every business or every photography business has the same challenges: sales, post-production, and client delivery. Those are the 3 things. If we can find a way to create a system that basically allows a photographer to outsource that to us, we become the back-end service provider beyond that, right? So we would have our own staff to sell. We have our own staff to post-produce and to deliver. And so if you're a photographer that's struggling and you have the art, like you said, but don't understand the business around it, well, we would be that back-end provider for you, just much like how you're doing podcasting for other small businesses. So we would take all that off your plate so that way you can focus on your artistry. So we would be able to provide the sales for you. We would automate your post-production for you. We would be able to make sure that your clients get the photos. We would handle sales and support, customer service, inquiries, things like that. That's where we see it going in the next 5 years. We've also launched recently a platform called InstantEditAI.com, which is a website that allows brides and photographers to post-produce their photos with the click of a button. So you upload some photos, you press a button, and you get the same results that a photographer would get as if he edited the photos themselves. So we've calibrated algorithms to be able to, that's based on the last 10, 15 years of our information on how we've edited photos and put that into a model that a customer can call it at any given point.
That's awesome.
So that's one.
But tell me, can you make the angry auntie in the back smile in the AI tool yet?
Not yet. We're working on that, but
That's the one thing with Indian wedding photos. There's always one person in that big
yeah,
group
there's
shot
always
that
one person
ruins
that's going to ruin it.
right? And I remember laughing when my wife brought up that concern in these like family photos. I'm like, don't worry, we're all pros. We know what to do.
We can figure that out.
Man, it was impossible for me to Photoshop some faces.
Yeah.
And I'm a Photoshop god, right? So I could
Right.
do some magic, but sometimes it's just not possible.
It's harder. It's harder than it looks. Yeah, I definitely agree.
But it's definitely cool that you're allowing brides and pretty much anyone with the camera to use those tools.
Yeah.
Is this profitable to take away those aspects of the business for a photographer? Because like if I think about it, yeah, are there AI tools that can edit podcasts? Sure, they exist. Are they good? Depends, right? You get what you pay for. There's the $20 plugins versus the Fiverr group of guys that are in Brazil or wherever they are making the edits and so on and so forth.
I think eventually AI is going to level the playing field across every creative industry, and where you can build rules, and if it's repeatable, if it's pattern based, that will level the playing field. That will create synergies across the industry.
Yeah.
And so while I think that it's ultimately a bet that, every photographer has that same need, if you can turn that and package that into a software that they can utilize, I think that becomes more valuable, because then that means that photographer can take on more jobs. It's not going to be backlogged with their edits. I think overall net it creates more opportunity for others rather than lose opportunity. because it's more time and savings.
And how does this model work? Is it like credit based? Is it membership based?
It would be credit based. So today it's credit based. So it's based on the number of photos that you upload, and it's like pennies on the dollar. So it's really inexpensive to post produce with us. But that's ultimately what we're trying to build out is the software side of the business.
So you're telling me your photos are so amazing because an AI is the editor, not
no.
Samir?
So unfortunately,
is that what you're telling me right now?
it's actually because we've unfortunately refined our approach over years, and we've been fortunate enough to save that information to be able to make it easily accessible.
So I'm imagining that there's like an AI, and I'm personifying this AI as a human being, right? It's just sitting there, gets a photo in, is like, all right, which one of the Samir Lutz do I want to use for this photo?
Yeah.
And then just applies it.
And
then magically, it's as if Samir did it himself.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, that'll take away 90% of the work.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
If only I could do that with marketing ad concepts.
I'm sure you could.
It's not possible yet.
Not yet. But there's a lot of tools out there for content creators, for podcasting.
You know what the problem
better,
is on the marketing side? Because a lot of people will approach me about this. Like, do I think AI is going to replace what I do as a marketing agent? I feel like you can't create empathy yet through AI-driven content.
Yeah.
Like the AI-driven content, whether it's you're using ChatGPT or one of the other tools, will say, have baby sitting on pillow and X, Y, and Z, right? But knowing what version of the video to shoot based on how the baby's movements are, the facial expression, so on and so forth, it can't do.
Not yet.
Right? And when you see a photo of that baby and the reaction is just awe.
Right.
Sometimes these tools, at least in my opinion, aren't going to get there for at least 3 to 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much nuance that it's impossible for it to happen any faster than that.
Yeah.
And the way I'm looking at that timeline, which a lot of people ask me, like, Ankur, like, how could you possibly make that guesstimate? Because it is exponentially getting smarter day by day.
Mm-hmm.
Well, for a guy like me, it took 20 years to be this good. There's no way AI can do it in less than 3.
But there's gonna be
no way.
But there's gonna be some foundational things that you do in your process that could be streamlined. Ultimately.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's no different than having a junior copywriter. Right. Someone putting together the initial idea, but then an editor has to come do editorial, right? Come in and editorialize it
and refine it, right?
And refine it to actually be good.
Yeah.
Similarly, there's certain things like, there's tools that I can use to cut out a silhouette of someone in a millisecond, right? And God, I love that tool because it makes my life so much easier. Because cutting hair is a problem.
Yeah.
But it's no longer a problem, right? Thankfully, thanks to technology.
Right.
But knowing then how to position that person, understanding how to then do edits with hues, with lighting, with the color grading, any one of those pieces.
Right.
I mean, granted, I could train a lot to do certain things, but whether I shot at 3 p.m. or whether I shot at 7 p.m., does your AI know the time of day if it's an outdoor photo?
It can recognize that, yeah. So there's something called a histogram in a picture, and that histogram can look at the whites, the highlights, and then based on that, it'll tailor it because it's seen that outdoor photo previously, and it'll mimic the similar adjustments that were made to that.
And it's awesome that can happen on the photography side.
Yeah.
But then mimicking the syntax, the diction, the typography in an ad campaign on top of all those other decisions, it's just not there yet.
I think it'll get closer. It'll definitely get closer.
Oh, I don't disagree. Yeah. I think it'll get to 95% closeness, but you're not going to get to the point where a startup brand is using AI to blow up. It's just not going to happen.
Probably.
Unless, of course, there's that one unicorn scenario, right? There's always the one outlier.
Yeah.
But that's because they have a sneaker brand or they have a blanket company, and it's very simple. Most people that come to me have a very nuanced product that they need. It's not just like taking a render of a soda can and figuring out how to adjust that art and make it do all the things that we want it to do.
Yeah.
Then there's political correctness, right? And community, whatever the appropriate word is so that you don't get canceled based on what you do in a marketing campaign. Man, I just don't know how someone is going to create that level of AI intelligence that's going to avoid all that.
It probably is going to continue to be a mixture of human creativity mixed with technology to create an output that will accelerate the human level of what they could do alone.
Yeah.
I think it never becomes just one or the other. I don't think it's just all in AI or not. I think it's more of you always have that oversight to ultimately make the final decision. A human in the loop workflow is what they call it. But I mean, over time, you have to imagine that if humans are making the same decision, and you can feed that data in, eventually, you would think it can pick up on it, especially as some of these reasoning models are getting really.
Well,
really
let me ask you
advanced.
this: how often do you scan competitors in the market from other countries?
Not very often.
So I scan this stuff regularly because
Okay.
I want to see how pricing models are happening in Europe. I want to how they're happening in Australia, Brazil, so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
The coolest trend that I'm noticing in marketing and in graphic design, photography, I'm now starting to see a jump in people referencing edited by a human
Okay.
versus edited by an AI.
Interesting.
And they're charging double, if not triple, the price to say edited by a human, knowing that the human's going to go in and do the nuanced things of like moving the hair follicle out of the way
Right.
or fixing the pimple or whatever it is.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas sometimes AI won't do it, right? Or
Right.
AI will overdo it, right? And so on and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
That's been an interesting thought process here where, you know, as you're pricing out a South Asian wedding, do you now create a budget option where it's like edited by AI and it's the easy version? And then you create a more expensive version edited by a human or audited by a human or whatever phrasing
Yeah.
makes sense.
Yeah. So actually, it's funny you say that. So what we're trying to do is we have budget options and we have more simplified options, and ultimately, those are the types of jobs that would get edited by AI versus a human.
Right.
And so that becomes the cheaper alternative, and it's 90% just as good as the human, but it gives them what, a 25-30% discount versus a human. So it's a way to provide them value, but in a way that kind of meets their budget need, and for someone that might be okay with, if it's a a lower risk event like a birthday party or something. But for a wedding, I mean, it all depends. But
Did you ever think this is where the industry would be 20 years ago when you started?
2017, 18, I started to have a hunch that this is where the market was going, and I started to create my own culling algorithm back in 2018. So fun fact, so there's a company called Aftershoot. Shout out to Hershit. He's a buddy of mine that founded the company. And they use culling for photographers. So their algorithm basically looks at if the eyes are closed or any duplicate shots, if the photo's blurry, they can automatically cull that out. So their software is something that runs on the desktop. A photographer presses a button and it all gets selected. You pick the best 50% of that. So I tried creating my own algorithm in 2018. And when you looked at what the trend was in AWS or Amazon, their tools became more and more easier. There were tools that became much more easier to use to solve some of these nuanced use cases. And I'm like, and I had such a hunch, and I just didn't have the right resource at the time. But yeah, to answer your question, I mean, I feel like that's ultimately it's going in a direction that it's becoming more autonomous. It's becoming smarter, and I think it's there for anyone that's willing to take the time and energy to figure it out and to learn it. You can really, if you're running a business, then it's the perfect tool set.
So what happened to that algorithm? You just gave up on it?
So I gave up on it because I just couldn't figure it out. But then within 3 years, the startup ended up doing it anyway. So now my bet is, so kind of go back to what we were talking about before. So while we're trying to figure out, post-production and automatic photo editing, video editing, same thing, where if you could ultimately, I mean, there's certain steps that videographers take, right? They have hours of footage after they come back from a wedding.
Don't tell all the secrets.
I won't tell you, but there are certain nuances that take place today. So you have 12 hours of footage. You need to remove any shaky shots. You need to figure out what pieces of that video you're going to take and put into a highlight film. It's all very repetitive. It's all very redundant. If you look at companies like the NBA, the NFL, how can they put together highlights so quickly, right after a game, or even right during the game? Well, they're just using scripts. They're using open source libraries that then take it, and they can listen to the crowd cheering, and they can track, number 24 for Kobe Bryant and see him slam dunk, and they'll take that snippet 10 seconds before, 10 seconds after, and put that into a highlight. Well, could you apply some of that same logic for a wedding? Could you look at and say, when the couple cheers and they're walking down the aisle, you'd want to use that in a highlight? Could you grab people crying during a vidai because you can tell emotion using AI and put that into a highlight? So there's some of these key moments that AI is really good at being able to parse out. And I think we're getting to the point where the tools are available. Now our bet is, can we leverage some of that to automate the post-production process, get a wedding film out within a couple of days, or maybe even less than that? So beyond just the post-production side of things, that's our second bet, that ultimately that would be a software tool that we would then outsource to other videographers, allow them to become more profitable in their business. And that's based on our experience, our data, everything that we've learned over the last couple of decades, and open source it and allow anyone to use it.
Man, that is one of those things where when you think about the difference between all the different types of ceremonies that we have in our culture, and then you compare it to an East Asian culture, or you compare it to the Middle Eastern cultures, or the American cultures, or even South American cultures, so on and so forth, you're right. A lot of the emotional pinpoints throughout a wedding are repeating.
Yep.
Right? If you could find the moment of where there's people crying, or find a moment where people are cheering, and so on and so forth.
Right.
It's interesting that I don't know what these tools are for the wedding industry, but I've never had to learn them, right? I could tell you those tools for graphic design and for photo editing and for a variety of other things, but most people don't know that even in podcasting, there's some tools that can do cutting and so on and so forth. Like, for example, you're not speaking right now, so it's very easy for the edit to just know that there's no audio coming from mic 2. So don't show the mic 2 camera that's assigned to that same microphone. Now, are there points where like that software doesn't get the job done? Yeah, it's about 10% of the time, especially when we're talking over each other or there's a short reaction. Like if I'm just going, you don't want it to quickly jump over to me because of the from something that you said. And I think that's where the decision needs to get made on a business case of, does that 10% matter? I mean, you don't approach it as an artist. I think I actually started as an artist. I just happened to know the business side of it from a really early on point for me.
Right.
So for me, it's hard to give up that 10%, which is why a lot of people will come to me. I think we started talking about this, about why I chose this microphone, why I choose these cameras, so on and so forth. At the end of the day, I'm still a showman, right? I want people to experience the whole show. I walked you in here, gave you the whole tour, showed you all the fancy lights, threw in the extra bells and whistles of having, the hair lights on and so on and so forth. You can't tell because, actually you can tell. There is a hair light
can tell,
in theory on top of me,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when you were like hair light, I'm like, oh, he doesn't realize that his hair is lit right now, right? We're seated, so the hair light is different
True, I forgot about
the
that.
setting of what we need to do. But I think that showmanship matters, right? But again, maybe that's just the artist aspect of me and not the business side of me.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think ultimately it's going to come down to you having the final say in what gets shown to your customers and to your audience. I mean, you're never going to just close your eyes, press a button, and then it's going to go out. At least not yet. But
well, I mean, for the $75 client, sure. Just
Sure.
to push
Yeah.
a button, it's done.
Yeah, it's
that's what you get, right?
Yeah.
But for the $1,000 client, you got to show them a little bit of
course.
of the sprinkle dust magic across whatever you're touching.
Yeah.
So what else is next for Samir?
What's next for Samir? That's a good question. I don't know. So I've done a couple of things. So we've hired some.
Well, wait a second. What brought you to come here today?
Knowing that ultimately I had to figure out social for my customers at some point.
You just missed me. You can tell the truth to the camera. It's like I haven't talked to Ankur in a long time.
You've been texting me for probably a year now, and I was like, I should get up there one day. And then I was like, I was off for work this week, so let me just make the trip.
Yeah, I guess sometimes I forget that you have that day job too,
Yeah.
right? And I'm just like, this dude has to be available during the daytime, but no, in reality, you're not, right? You're solving financial crises and
Yeah,
problems
right.
and so on and so forth
For
during
someone
your
else, probably,
during your day
yeah.
job. But yeah, I mean, dude, I've been trying to get you to come down here. One, because I know you know about the equipment and the setups
Yep.
and everything, but two, I wanted to get opinions on like, am I lighting the space properly?
I think you are. I mean, this is a great setup. I mean, you've got the cameras, the mirrorless line cameras, which I love personally. I mean, we've even bought that for ourselves. You've got your grid on your lights, which is great. That's very, very professionally done. And you've got your hair lights. I mean, I think the way you've done it is perfect. That I don't know what that is. I mean, I'm not an audio person, but
It's just a soundboard.
okay.
Nothing special. Just there's certain people that want to be like, oh, let's take this call from home. And
Yeah.
you try to have some way to connect it all, and like you put on headphones so you could hear the person at home.
Yeah.
What needs to happen.
Yeah.
But yeah, you've never seen the DJ audio side of it.
No, I've never understood audio from a DJ.
I have this weird like culmination of life experience that put me in this position where I can combine all these different talents into one thing. But yeah, so I mean, we were asking what's next for Samir. So you said you wanted to come here to learn about some marketing stuff
Yeah.
when it comes to personal brand and so on and so forth. So go ahead, man. Ask me. What questions can I
Yeah.
give you guidance on?
So for me, I realized that when I was doing some research like last year, that there's no one that in the industry today that provides education for Indian weddings. And for me, the focus this year.
Well, I mean, there's all the aunties.
Well, yeah, of
They
course.
provide a lot of free education.
A lot of free education, yeah, but not professionalized in a way that can actually help others in a more tailored way to focus on a goal of breaking into the industry. So one thing I learned last year was, well, there's no one that does it for the South Asian market, and let alone even focus on the big market that we here have in New Jersey for Indian weddings.
What do you mean by breaking into the market? Do you mean by establishing yourself? Do you mean getting a client list? Do you mean learning how to actually do the job that you want to do?
It's soup to nuts on how to operate a wedding and video photography and cinematography business in New Jersey for the South Asian market. It's like very niche. I feel like it's such a huge market. There's probably 1 billion plus people in New Jersey that fit into this demographic, and it's a big market that gets serviced today. But there's very little education out there on actually how to get started. So we were trying to figure out, well, can we figure out a way to help create content or create marketing materials or information and share that based on our experience to others that are trying to get into it. I mean, we get a lot of people come up to us and say, well, hey, we want to shoot with you, we want to shadow, we want to do this, we want to do that. And it's a lot for us to be able to try to just shepherd every single person. So can we create content in a way that can be reused and solidify the experience and put it and document it? So that's where I need a little more advice or understanding on what do you suggest for what we're trying to accomplish. Some of our learnings have been, we focus on some of the wrong content, I think, initially. So from a branding point of view, how can we use our problem of having capacity issues, but then also how can we also provide advice or at least our experience to brides that are in the market for weddings in a way that helps them, and then also helps us kind of democratize that knowledge to others that are trying to get into the industry.
I know you understand the business end of everything that you're talking about right now pretty well. So I guess my question is, can we quantify how large this pool of potential customers or clients or whatever it is that we're going to describe that type of person? I mean, looking at, like, we have a mutual friend, right? Sumit Arya, who owns Dulhan Expo.
Mm-hmm.
I could tell you from my conversations with him, he's got some shows that have 1,500 vendors, and he's got some shows that have 50 vendors, right? And I'm sure if we call him and try to find out how many are new vendors year after year versus repeating vendors, I don't know if the pool of people in the South Asian community is bigger than 500 or so seasonally year after year. Is that a large enough pool for you to go after and make it worthwhile?
It's more about the customer, like the bride herself and the families themselves as they navigate through the planning process. Because for us, like, ultimately, we want to be able to share our experience with that demographic. So it's not so much about, the 500 vendors or so. It's more about the pools of people or Indian brides that may not just be in New Jersey, but I guess a little bit wider reaching than that.
Okay, so
that's how we're thinking about it.
So it's like, hey, it's time to start planning your big, fat South Asian wedding. What should be step one?
So what should be step one is
no,
really,
I'm saying, is that the
that's exactly
the target
it.
audience?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
So for the brides that are out there, I would then want to quantify what percentage of these brides actually care for advice versus what percentage of these brides are bridezillas that just want to do it their way, right? And then can you create a division of content so that, it's like how to get a better rate from your caterer versus the whole process. The catering scenario is a very good example where a lot of people don't understand the difference between breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, the difference between talking to your venue for a bar guarantee versus open bar versus, what have you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'd imagine that there is a lot of content that exists for the demographic in question, because I mean, the wedding industry is ridiculously large, right? I think for the South Asian community, there's maybe 5 YouTubers that are doing a pretty good job, but it's all like brides who just like bragging that they got a good deal, right? Or brides that are talking about how they did a DIY wedding or what have you. I think if you became like a thought leader in the space, I think finding the audience would be really easy. But to become a thought leader, you're not putting out nearly enough content.
Yeah.
And then the next question becomes, do brides want to listen to Samir, or do you have to hire a different face to be that person?
Mm-hmm.
And this is just like gut reaction, right? Now, I could tell you grooms want to hear from Samir, right? There's no question about that. I don't know the answer to if brides want to hear Samir's thought on how to go about doing this. Mm-hmm. Has that been something that's crossed your mind?
No, not really.
So I can tell you right now that if you put out a course on, how to plan a South Asian wedding, my wife would not listen. But my wife is a very easy person to put a specific influencer type in front of her, and then she will listen to everything that influencer says.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with South Asian makeup, right? It's kind of taken a huge upswing in the market.
Yeah.
And there's certain influencers that are able to gain clout and recognition from the female South Asian audience. So that would be my first concern, right? I would ask you to pivot to being the groom whisperer for the South Asian demographic and showing them how to negotiate and how to deal with your wife who wants X, Y, and Z and how to give her what she wants. Because you'd be surprised. The rise in multicultural weddings is drastically increasing, and it's more often than not a multicultural man than it is a multicultural woman, right? I mean, they have this whole thing on social media right now saying like the Indian wave or whatever's happening, and everyone's realizing how hot Indian women are. I'm just like, have y'all just been blind?
You've been living on a rock for a while.
But there's a lot of white dudes marrying these beautiful Indian women that don't understand anything of what's going on, right? And then if you were to create content around that and be the thought leader in that space, I think you would win very fast in what you need to do. Mm-hmm. You have a great look for it. You have the ability to articulate almost every aspect of the ceremony, every aspect of the negotiation of each of these pieces. And there'll be some brides that would listen because their husbands recommended it or what have you, right? But I don't know if that should be your target audience.
That's a good point. No, that makes sense. I mean, the way that we see it, or the way I've been kind of thinking about it, is really around like the sales cycle. So once we get a customer that comes in the door, is interested in hiring us for media services or for photo and cinema, there's certain things that happen in the run up into the wedding day. So maybe I can be a little more specific here. It's more around what's the vision for your wedding. How do we recommend planning out your timeline to maximize how we can create content for you from the day, and doing that in a way that's a little bit more methodical versus rushed, and that doesn't allow for us to create the content we need for you. So it's more.
But now you're competing with wedding planners, and there's thousands.
But there's synergies there, I think, because let's take your example for example. So if when you planned your wedding, what was that process like around getting all the vendors?
You really
together?
want me to get through PTSD right now?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
It was that bad, right?
Oh, it was so bad.
Yeah.
But the reason it was bad was because people were trying to tell me things. Like this whole idea of mansplaining. Like, you don't have to tell me how catering works. Just tell me what the price for these 8 items.
Yeah.
And things like hiring a wedding planner. Okay, in retrospect, everyone's a general after the war is over. I should have hired a wedding planner. Mostly because you can't be in 3 positions at the same time during the wedding, right? You can't be the wedding planner and the groom and the DJ. It's just not possible.
Right.
So giving up control is a whole thing. But the people who I did empower, myself and my wife, to guide us, they were telling us the answers to a lot of these things that we might not have listened to. And I think a wedding planner is someone that you hand over all that control to, and you just do what they tell you to do because they're now in charge, right? You don't have to worry about any of that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I think if you're self-educating brides on planning and getting their vision across and whatever else needs to happen, more often than not, the bride's wrong. And so I can tell you right now, if I talk to a wedding planner and we ask them that same question, they'll be like, the bride never knows what they want, right?
Yeah.
They think they want this, but you have to steer them into reality, right? Into what can actually happen.
Set the expectation.
Getting an understanding of how many photos can you possibly get done in 30 minutes, right? Oh, well, I want to do 7,000 family photos. Every single person that came to this wedding, I need a photo with.
Yeah.
That's insane. You're not going to get the emotional moments if you burn out your photographer from standing in one spot doing 200 photos back to back to back.
And that's what a lot of what we see is that very same problem is that, right? So it's ultimately like there's a certain expectation that our bride has of us to create something that's going to be memorable for them, but it 9 times out of 10 doesn't get planned the right way. And then we step in as almost planners. I hate to say it. I mean, we're not trying to be planners, but we're just trying to be more efficient with how things are run during the day. And of course, there's certain like vendors we work really well with. Could there be some cross collaboration there where we recommend XYZ vendors because we've executed on this very methodically before? I mean, could there be some cross synergies in that? So it's really meant to just kind of help, take your case, for example. If it was really difficult for you to kind of find the right vendors or pool of vendors, could you make that process easier for a customer?
Finding vendors isn't hard, ever, right? There's websites like The Knot, Dohan Expo. I mean, finding vendors is actually very easy. Finding vendors that you click with requires that interview process and going through whatever. Now, your argument is, hey, you love me, so you probably love the guys that I love working with because we're all kind of similar in thought process.
Right.
That kind of happens naturally, right? When a bride's talking to you, it's like, hey, do you know a good videographer? Well, yeah, meet my brother. Yeah. But outside of that example, right, do you have a caterer recommendation? Do you have this? Do you have that? And, you might give your pinpoints on what that needs to be. How do you monetize being that information provider? Is it in a course? Is it...
It's through references. I think it's more about goodwill more than anything else. I think it's more around like sharing the experience and who we feel is best to execute on your vision and who can do so in a way that works well with others. I mean, I think that's
but come back to the question at hand, right? You're here because you want to potentially get some guidance on that personal branding tip, right? And how to get credit for these different solutions that you can provide for the brides and the families. But how do you monetize being the person who gets that credit? Because the referral hasn't happened yet.
Right. Well, ultimately, it comes down to services, right? So we hope that by providing the education that we in turn get hired for our services. And then in a way then that can help create a little more buzz around other vendors we work with and cross referrals.
Yeah, Samir, bro, then your content's trash. You need to be more fun in your content.
Okay.
That would be the solution.
And that's the advice that I need.
Yeah, I think people need to see you as both a professional and as a human being. I mean, the fact that you actually care about those moments, I don't think translates from how people find you. When people find you, it's because of the breadth of experience that you guys have and the amount of people who tag you in the content that you've created for that family.
Right.
But I don't think anyone sees how much fun you actually have at the event, which is something that's very different for your team compared to most other teams that are out there. Most other teams are yelling at each other, screaming, throwing walkie-talkies like, get your butt over to this is happening right now. Why is there no one capturing this moment, right?
Yep.
I don't know why this is my walkie-talkie. It's
That's a cell phone.
That's what it is. This is my cowabunga mood. But I just think if that is the goal, is you want to find a way to get more of the business to come to you. I mean, you got to not only be the thought leader in the space of phenomenal service, you have to be notorious for being the guys that do what you guys do. And I don't know if that's what's synonymous with your name right now. And that means you got to post 6 reels a week.
Yeah, I figured.
Right?
Yeah,
and you got to have 5 photos a week, and you have to respond and comment on every possible opportunity that's on X, on Pinterest,
on every platform,
every major platform that's out there. Some of which can be automated, not well, but can be automated. But there's got to be personality across the board, and that might be missing right now, at least from looking at the content.
Sure.
I mean, sure, there's a wow factor from looking at the content right now, but Yeah, your content game has to pick up
Yeah.
drastically if that's
Yeah.
what you want.
Yeah, ultimately that's the goal, is for us to figure out what the strategy is first. What's our goal for that, and then from there back into, posts and reels and what makes sense for our business.
Do you ever record reels at the wedding?
Sometimes.
Because I haven't seen
Sometimes.
any
Yeah.
like behind the scenes reels. I haven't seen you post any.
We haven't. I mean, some of it's up there, not a lot. I mean, a lot of it's really stuck in our own like archive of stuff that we just haven't gotten to, quite frankly. So we have a ton of it, but it's not something that's ever made it to prime time.
Like you've held the camera and you're like, hey guys, we're gonna go interview the groom right now.
More around, my brother's got a gimbal and he's recording me posing bridal parties and family photos and just prep sessions, stuff like that on the back end. Yeah.
You're falling into the realm of what restaurants do wrong. When all restaurants do is post photos of their food, their account never grows.
Right.
Right? Because, okay, you're just like every other food account, and I might want to see the food photo, but I don't really engage with the food photo.
Mm-hmm.
You have to show more about the process of loading up the car, right? What are you excited about at the wedding? What's the one moment you're worried about whether or not you're going to get it right? The whole idea of reality television, right? Will they, won't they scenario. Like, oh man, at that last wedding, we missed the perfect moment of that first look. Am I going to get it this time? Am I not going to get it this time?
The
Right?
authentic and unfiltered stuff that happens on the back end.
Well, the drama, right?
Yeah.
But not to the point of you looking unprofessional. But like, as soon as you get the moment, it's like, we got the moment, guys. Don't worry, check it out. And then you show them the photo and the reel. And then you like have a reaction video with the bride and groom to that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a whole storyline of why this content, this drip campaign that you have through video reel content is actually happening in your own brain, right? But the end users are just capturing like, oh wow, like Raj Photo Video crushed it on this one.
Right. How do you feel about like content for other artists or photographers that want to get into the space? Like, how would you strategize that? So that was very helpful, by the way, in terms of like understanding, what solutions are out there.
Everyone just came here and I was like, your content's trash. And like, that was so helpful. Thanks. That'd be awesome.
Well, that's why I'm here, right? So
You gotta pull yourself out of the shoes of needing to qualify. You don't need to qualify for the brides. You now just have to entertain in all of your content, and you will get a crazy amount of business. And a lot of people, they fall into this loop of endless qualification. Like us because we're good enough to be liked. Everyone knows that you're good enough to be liked. That doesn't get human contact to happen.
got it.
Right? It's like, date me because I'm good looking and I'm a good guy. That doesn't land you the woman.
Right.
So you were saying, how do I feel about creating content for people who want to get into the
so one
industry?
side of it was like brides and content for them, but then the other side is like photographers or other artists that want to get into the space of South Asian weddings. Like, what would you say in terms of strategy for that audience?
Yeah, I think DJ USA, M4U events, these guys did a really great job in the past decade where they created different concepts throughout the years to show that they were hiring, like come join our team. There are things that people did to showcase professionality and personality. Like, hey, meet the team, right? And then you have FOMO if you're not on the team. Hey, why doesn't my team do this? Or I should join that team because they do team highlights and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. Then there was the professional aspect of it where they invested in creating content for each member of the team. You look like DJ USA, and you'll see that every DJ from Sharad down to the basic starter guy has a full custom reel at some point. Obviously, the bigger guys like Juicy and Ash will have like more content around them, but they obviously deserve it, right? They have the bigger events and what they do. Mm-hmm. You just need to ask. Like, hey, we're growing our team. Like, who wants to come join the team? And you have to create content purposefully for that purpose.
Yeah.
But you can't do it in a way that's boring.
Yeah, I think so. Talent is one thing, but then once we get the talent in, like we've had a lot of interns come in, and those that shadow us, those that say, "Hey, I shoot," and then the second shoot with us, and there's certain elements that they're missing that we will then train on the job or even after the fact and kind of provide critique, feedback on their work, and it becomes this like ever evolving cycle of like sometimes like it takes them a while to pick it up, but then we don't want that to come at the expense of messing up what our commitment to our client is. Probably about 3 or 4 now.
In total?
In just the last year. Like we cycled through them.
In total. How many have you gone through this process where you have to train them?
About 20 to 25 so far.
And how many of them stuck around?
None.
So if you keep trying the same thing and it's
Yeah.
not working, what does that mean?
That we're insane, that we need another strategy.
Yeah. Stop hiring people who don't have the skills already.
So hire people that have the skills already.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Poach. Hire people from outside the South Asian world and bring them into the South Asian world. Training that type of person who already has the skills on what the events are is significantly easier than training someone on how to click and when to click and shutter speed and all that other stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
I can give you a great example in graphic design. I deal with this day in and day out. I can't count how many people I've trained on how to be as good as I need them to be. But man, it is a painful and expensive process of spending 3 to 6 months on training someone how to do syntax, diction, typography, hues, layers, color theory, whether or not green is going to make someone hungry versus red or yellow making someone hungry. You either know that kind of stuff or you don't. So I only hire people now in those types of creative roles that can do as good a job as me, but might be missing that 10%. Because that 10% is like the magic, right? And I spent 20 years of knowing that 10%.
Right.
I could polish up someone's 10% very fast. But, man, as an intern photographer, they know nothing. And they're honestly costing you more than they're making you more money.
It's costing us in time. Yeah.
Yeah, so... I mean, you knew the answer to that.
Right? I was hoping to hear
So
another way.
the question is, why do guys like you and me continue to invest in the small guy? It's not the wrong thing to do, right? Because when you polish a piece of charcoal into a diamond or whatever, they're a rare gem, and there's some amazing things that happen from helping someone along the way. But if you're trying to scale your business, being this philanthropist, caregiver, whatever, is not the way to do it.
Yeah, I think we've learned that over time. I mean, there's certain gratification in getting someone that has that aspiration and bringing them to the point where they can become a professional.
Yeah.
But then from professional that's already there, I mean, for us, like what we found is then we get squeezed between the customer and then that professional, and then we're like, well, what's the point of us doing this? So, I mean, a lot of people want their own thing, which is perfectly fine. That's why we're trying to find ways to create value there.
So let's talk through that, right? You said you're getting squeezed between the cost of the professional and the price to the end client. Like, what's the benefit of even doing this to begin with?
Right. So that's ultimately
the question then comes down to: are you charging enough?
We get outbid by the smaller guys, right? I mean, you get outbid by competition or the kid with the camera that's just enough of an artist. Like
are we a commodity business or are we an artistic business? And if we're the artistic business, your work is good enough to charge the price that you want to charge. And if you're getting outbid, so be it, right? There's going to be terrible product anyway.
Yeah.
In the web development world, I get outbid all the time, right? Someone will be like, I'll do it for $500. And I'm like, go with the $500 guy if that's what you care about. I'm $10,000 for me to build a website. But the nuances of what you get with me, if you don't realize after a conversation with me, it's pointless, right? I know how to make your hero banners work with the call to action button. I know color theory and how I'm going to relay everything. I understand that you can't use pure black and pure white. People's eyes get strained and you can't get this to happen. I understand that if you're looking at your demographic and your demographics 40 plus, you have to have certain font sizes on the site, right? And if your demographic is a younger audience, you have to have certain emojis and things that are trending with how people talk today and slang and so on and so forth. Your $500 website guy is not going to have a anywhere near a clue of how to get to that point. But you have to start doing the here's our portfolio, and these are the starting prices across the board. And yeah, if you have those guys that want the AI budget and you have a way to get like the intern to do it, then follow the barbershop model, right? You can have the guy who's starting off, the trainee, cut your hair, and yeah, it's $10 or $20 go to the trainee, but it's $75 if you want to go to the fully trained barber,
the master. Yeah.
And I think that type of model, if you guys did that adjustment, would change everything for you. Granted, you guys are known for being really affordable across the board, and you've never wanted to take advantage of brides and grooms throughout that space.
Yeah, I mean, we've since raised prices because there are certain elements that we start to realize that it takes more time and effort, and so that extra 10%, like you're referring to, like that's where we really take the time and dedication. So fortunately, we've been able to do that, but we still get the same demographic of customers that want that affordable option because that's where we started, And so while we've gravitated to more premium options, we still get that same business that we want to continue to service.
Yeah.
So it comes to, how can we provide a full scale, budget option, premium option, and then ultimately, be that service provider no matter who the customer is. But then again, like we were saying, we get squeezed on, having the right talent in place that can help facilitate some of that if we can't ourselves. But yeah, to your point, getting good talent in the door, I think that ultimately is something that we need to focus on and kind of work towards this year.
So, on the business end of this, just taking a step back, if we're operating a pizzeria and a pizzeria is getting pizzeria clientele all the time, the dollar pizza slice, whatever, and now we want to have a fine dining establishment. If Samir has enough business on the fine dining establishment, Samir goes and runs the fine dining establishment, and he hires someone to run the pizzeria. And you don't pay the person at the pizzeria what Samir got paid. You pay them what someone who's running a pizzeria gets paid.
Right.
And granted, loyalty is low and turnover is high, and there's headaches on the pizzeria model. The truth is, there's the same headaches on the high price model.
It's different.
It's just different problems slightly, right? So, in my opinion, you almost have to diverge the business so that you establish yourself in one area and start building content around this and getting that type of client base to come in. And then you hire someone to manage this aspect of the business that keeps the lights on and keeps things churning. And I'm sure it's not the first time you've heard that, right, across the board.
Mm-hmm.
The crux of the problem is the in-between phase, right, that transition phase and affording the bills and understanding that this process doesn't happen overnight, but this process didn't either.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Nothing changes, though, if you keep repeating the same thing over and over again. And you're right. You can't go hire another Samir when there's already Samir at the pizza shop. It'll never work.
Mm-hmm.
Samir has to leave the pizza shop for you to send a Samir to the pizza shop client for whatever they need, because then there's enough money for that person.
Right.
But Samir has to be over here full time building this if you want that to do anything.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what we're realizing. But then I think it comes down to customers that have hired us previously in like the lower budget model, and they still expect the premium experience. It's almost like you see a Ferrari in the window, and then you come in, and then you have a lower budget than what you can afford there. So it's like, how do we delicately thread that needle where we set the expectation accordingly to the client that, look, like, we can service you, but there's certain limitations on what we can offer, who we can offer, what the end product would look like. So that's something that's a little bit of a challenge, but
You don't think sincerity works?
it does. It does. But it's a one-on-one conversation every single time. How can we do that in a way that's a little more streamlined?
I mean, if you came to me and you were available, and I'm like, well, Raj Photo Video only charged $500 for events back in 2004, and you're like, buddy, the equipment's different now, the team's different. Here's examples of our portfolio. The price starts at this point. If I'm a jerk and I'm like, if you don't charge me the same price you did back in the day, I'm never come. Why would I move forward? Then that's on me to be that jerk, right? And that's my prerogative or the decision I'm going to make. But I think anyone who I've approached that talks to me about a Crimson Lab price from way back when, I just look at them and I'm like, listen, man, the quality of my work is drastically different now, right? And how big of a problem of yours am I about to solve? Right. I'm about to solve the problem of someone capturing every moment or every website or every conversion on e-com. And you want to be $1 million brand, or you want to have this lifetime set of memories. You got to spend $100,000 to build $1 million brand minimum.
Yeah.
You're not going to get $100 million brand with $500. Like, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. Hopefully, like, that experience of that person coming back X amount of years later, seeing that you still exist, and if not, your work has leveled up, would speak for itself. So that way, you could demonstrate, look, like, yeah, I was offered a certain service at a point in time, but now look how my work has evolved. Yeah, I mean, that's obviously one transition phase of any business, but
look at Apple, man. Apple can take out the charger now. They don't even have to give us a charger with the phone, and we'll still keep buying it.
Yeah.
I think the trick is in that smaller package, you start removing things.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, hey, we'd love to still offer this, but we can't.
Right.
Period.
Right.
You have to now get the bigger package.
Yeah.
I showed you the upstairs podcast room. We still rent that out at $75, but we don't do any editing, nothing. Down here, you only get access to this if you pay us to edit the show. I don't want some random person from Fiverr editing the footage out of this room.
Sure.
I want my team to do it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's good. It's good. Good advice.
But, bro, what was your first podcast like?
Pretty good. Definitely definitely surprised me. It was a lot more than I expected. I was thinking that we were going to just do it in one of those rooms over there, but this is definitely a
When I showed you the first
more
podcast
nicer
room,
setup.
you were like, "Oh, it's not even set up yet. I don't know what's gonna happen." I'm like, I could tell in your face as you were like looking around the room.
There were like clothes on the table. I'm like, okay, I guess we're doing it here. But
Yeah. What's crazy about these cameras is it can go like 3 hours
That's
if
awesome.
I wanted to. We're not going to. We're going to cut it off now.
Yeah, we
but
should.
I think the beauty of the setup and the room is like I can't wait till you see where this is going to be in 2-3 months.
Yeah,
It's going to keep growing
It's awesome.
and turning into what we want it to be.
yeah. And I love how you got the space you're building out here to create a more full-in studio with others as well. It's going to be great.
I can't wait,
We should be
man.
back.
So thanks for coming by. I'm glad I got to be your first podcast in life.
Thanks, Encore. Appreciate it.
Guys, tune into the next episode and you'll meet another person from my amazing and creative network.